Ooh, he's buggy. A quick, easy pattern for you today, the mini flopper. This little guy can be mistaken for all kinds of critters, from terrestrials to stoneflies to caddis. All depends on the size that you tie it in. And it's so easy to adjust across hook sizes that you can make this into a big old bass bug all the way down to a nice little dainty panfish trout size. Wonderful little adaptable pattern, easy to tie, a valuable addition to your box. Let's tie the mini flopper. So to prep our foam for this pattern, I'm using this kind of printed pattern foam. We tie these in tans, browns, blacks, a little bit of everything. This is one of my favorite. It just has kind of a buggy look to it. And this is a foam that you can get at craft stores, and it has a wood pattern on it. But it just makes a really unique looking pattern on your flies without you having to do anything. So to prep that, I just cut it about the same width as the hook gap, and then I just taper that back down a little bit. So we're not going to get to that foam just yet, but you can go ahead and get it prepped. So let's tie the mini flopper. This is a pretty easy pattern to tie, and it's so adaptable. It is a multi-species fish catcher, smallmouth, trout, bass, you name it, they'll all eat it. It's very easy to tie in a plethora of different sizes. I'm going on the smaller, just sort of mimic a trout terrestrial size today, as I am tying on a size 12 standard dry hook, and I'm just going to start dressing that with some black 6/0 thread. First things first here, I am going to come in with some brown super fine dubbing. You can kind of dub however you want here. If you want things to be a little bit buggier, use you a slightly more buggy dubbing. I tend to just go pretty basic here, because the attributes of what we're tying in to this pattern makes it a pretty buggy pattern. So I don't try to pull any bugginess or anything out of the actual dubbing. And I am just going to go ahead and dub that up to the front, and then come back to about the 3/4 point or so. Now, for the sake of preventing rolling and some of that kind of stuff, I'm going to put a little dab of super glue in here, and I'm going to set my foam in right on top of that, foam coming just barely past the bend. That's going to really help to set that foam in place for us and keep it there. And I'm going to wrap down around that a little bit to get it set. So in this pattern, I just focus on the float. I want to introduce all high float. We've already got that foam, super dry, is good at repelling water. In my wing, I like to use this Crinkle hair from Fly Tyer's Dungeon. This stuff just, I mean, it hates water. It floats like a cork. It ties in nice and small as well, but you can see it naturally wants to flare out. So for a very nice small footprint up here on the front, we get a nice big flary full wing. I really like this material for that. And you can double back if you want a super strong pronounced wing, or you can do the single section if you want a little bit more of a subdued wing. So that's totally up to you. For me, I think I'm going to go ahead and fold this back, and we're going to go for a pretty heavy wing there, because eventually we will fold the head back over onto this. Okay, so even if you have a big kind of wild woolly wing going on there, you'll be all right. So I am going to trim that out just a little bit. It's a little long. I don't want it to be too square, so I kind of come in and just snip in random places, and then it doesn't get you this super square wing. It'll get you a trimmed down wing, but you'll still have a little bit of taper to things. And now I'm going to come in and put a little bit of a nice bright chartreuse cider on this. This is one of those things you don't have to put. There's tons of things you can use for this. I'm using bait fish hair here, but you could just use a parachute post or anything like that, or you honestly don't even have to do it. One thing that I like about it is it helps to tame down that wing, and it just gives you something. Even big flies like this, having something in there that really sets it apart from the water. If you're fishing at distance, sometimes something as subtle as that small little splash of chartreuse can really aid you in seeing and finding your fly. So now I am going to come in and drop in a couple of rubber legs. We're going to put these guys on each side, and I'm really kind of aiming to have those tied in roughly where the two pieces of foam would meet. Nothing too perfect or too scientific. I'm just going kind of for that neck of the woods to tie those in. And once you get those lashed in there, we will go ahead and officially pull that foam back. I'm not stretching it tight because I do want it to form a little bit of a sort of bulbous head up here at the front. See how that kind of poofs out a little bit? That's what I want. And now we're just going to dub up a little bit more of that super fine. Just a standard dubbing noodle here. And we're just going to use that to clean up some of those thread wraps that we had put in to tie in all of this material. There we go. And now you can just sneak right up to the front so that you can whip finish. Go ahead and whip finish. There we go. You got options with your legs, of course. I'm going to trim the back legs off right at the rear of the body there. Anytime you trim legs, you usually have to come back in and readjust them just a bit. With these, I tend to just go with a nice pronounced leg, both front and back. I don't really do the staggered legs where the front's shorter. I just want a lot of nice leg movement up there at the front. So I leave them just like that. And then my piece of foam that I folded back, I'm going to cut that short. Okay. And there we have it. Very easy pattern to tie. It floats like a cork. It catches trout, it catches panfish, it catches bass. You can tie these from something gigantic to something very small using this exact method. It's so versatile in between hook sizes, so you can really tie it to focus on trout, panfish, bass, whatever you're after. It's great for dropper setups. It floats like a cork, and it catches fish, and it just gives them a little bit different of a look than a lot of the other patterns that they see day in and day out. So everything on this thing is just geared towards float, float, float. So you can fish it in about any kind of water. You can drift it, you can strip it, you can do whatever you want. Great pattern. Thank you all for checking it out, and tight lines. God bless.